Experience a progressive lens engineered with AI from Essilor, powered by individual measurements of your visual behavior. A lens personalized to you by an Essilor expert. Discover Verilux XR Track and enjoy instantly sharp vision in motion and seamless transitions from near to far. Find your local Essilor expert today at Essilor.com.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the State Republican Party in New York, as well as being the County Chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We're very happy that you're back with us. Well, Jesse, it's been a very busy time. The breaking news is that the Colorado Supreme Court, in a 4-3 vote, all of which were Democrat appointees, by the way, said that Mr. Trump had violated the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. Therefore, he's barred from being on the ballot in the state of Colorado. Let me make a few comments, and then I want to get your thoughts. Number one, I have no doubt that when this case goes to the Supreme Court, as it has to, this case will be very, very clear on the record that Colorado is violating the Constitution of the United States. There's nothing in the 14th Amendment that authorizes them from doing that. Nothing at all. It was a piece of legislation that had to do with barring Confederate office holders from coming, and who fought in the Confederacy, from coming back and having federal jobs. As far as I know, Mr. Trump did not fight for the Confederacy. That's number one. Well, who knows? They're saying he's also a Hitler, so who knows what they'll accuse him of. The second thing is that there's no due process in this. This was not a real trial on the merits, and the whole thing was absolutely ridiculous. So based on the due process clause of the Constitution, as well as the 14th Amendment itself, I say it's going to get thrown out, and I'd be amazed if he had any real votes in favor of barring Trump from the ballot. The danger is politically, you have the left-wing politicians and ambitious Democratic politicians saying they're now going to go after Trump and bar him in the states of California, as well as the state of New York, with others to follow. I think they're all wrong. I think it's unfair. It's an interference with an election, and people have a right to vote for the candidate of their choice. Mr. Trump is not barred from anything he did. There's never been a finding or an accusation, in fact, other than a political accusation, that he interfered and led to a riot on January 6th. It's absolute nonsense. Even Jack Smith, special counsel, never charged him with instigating a riot against the United States government. So he's wrong. And by the way, on a political judgment, in my opinion, it's very, very simple. This is going to cause more people to rally around Trump than oppose him. Jesse, your thoughts?
My thoughts are, number one, this decision by the Colorado Supreme Court is an utter embarrassment to the judiciary. It's an embarrassment to those justices. It is the continuation of activist progressive judges controlling the judiciary. As you pointed out, this is nothing more than left Democrat governors appointing these justices. And now they're not ruling on the constitutionality of law. They're ruling on politics. What they deem is it's opinion, not based in fact. Number two, this is the ultimate voter suppression. This is basically telling American voters, whether you're Republican, Independent, blanks, or Democrats, but in this case, it's a Republican primary, that I'm sorry, you're not allowed to vote for this person. We're deem them unqualified, even though there's no basis for it. As for, of course, this is now like, a whistle for the progressive activists in California and, of course, here in New York. They've already destroyed these two once great states. Now they're going to continue to make them more of an embarrassment, where we're going to try and stop Trump from being on the ballot in these states and others. It's amazing that it's those Democratic-controlled states that are ones moving here. I should admit to you, Your Honor, that this is an act that maybe not hatched and everyone taking part in, but it demonstrates the fear of a Trump candidacy and overtaking their fair-haired boy, President Joe Biden, in the election. They're scared of his presence on the ballot because of what it means to their control of influence, power, and, of course, personal profiteering on this. As for this moving forward to different states, I think you know that once the Supreme Court takes this matter up, they have to take it up rather quickly because of these states have to schedule their primaries. That once that's done, it'll bring a halt to all these actions. But, I mean, speaking from a New Yorker, I've seen these crazy clowns, Albany Democrats, do crazier things, so they may still defy the Supreme Court of the United States. I mean, they've already weaponized and politicized the judiciary here in the state of New York. A once great court of appeals has now been rendered nothing more than a joke and a rubber stamp. But I do have this other question for you, Your Honor, and I don't know very much. I know the rules of primaries within the Republican primary and in the state of New York, and I know each state has differences. Wouldn't this just be, I mean, if the Republican Party went to a caucus instead of a primary? Doesn't that just circumvent the whole process?
Well, that's very, very interesting, because if they did that, then the next thing you know is what they would do is they'd bring some action to bar him from being in the ballot in the November election. So you're right. That's very clever, Jesse, saying that you circumvented this by not putting him on the ballot and doing a caucus. The problem is, how are you going to change? It's so late in the game. How are you going to change under state law the way parties convene and do their work? You have to set aside the primaries in New York State. And how do you do it just for the one party, the Republicans, and not for the Democrats? So that'll be a problem right there. And how do they do it in a timely way? And even if you're able to do it timely, Jesse, what stops these radical fringe Democrats from going after Trump and trying to bar him from the November ballot? But the real key is he's not getting due process. And the real key is there's nothing in the 14th Amendment Constitution that would bar him. He has not been convicted of anything. He's not been formally charged with anything. There's no due process here. The 14th Amendment does not allow this to happen. And my prediction is, if you have an honest Supreme Court of the United States, they'll lose this 9-0. If you have any people who vote for this, who's currently sitting in the Supreme Court of the United States, they do not know their Constitution. They do not know their law. They're voting for ideology, not politics. I would think better of the United States Supreme Court. But, of course, as you correctly point out, the judiciary has been so politicized, one never knows. Now, I want to raise this issue with you because you made a reference to some of the craziness that's going on in New York State and California and other places. So let's talk about California and then let's talk about New York. So Gavin Newsom, in his great efforts to appease the left and to make sure that he's the heir apparent to the Democratic nomination for the presidency if Biden fails, came up with this idea of a reparations commission. And they appointed a commission. They came back and they asked for, I forget what the numbers were, it was millions of dollars per individual over a long period of time, which would not be particularly good for the economy of the state of California. It was so bad, Jesse, that the state of California, which is facing about a $68 billion deficit, decided to bag the idea of reparations for the time being. So now our esteemed state legislature, controlled by the radical left progressives, and our governor signed a bill just the other day, Jesse, creating a reparations commission to the state of New York. Now, can you think of a more divisive idea to divide our citizens based on race than having a reparations commission? That's number one. And number two, our economy in New York State is in desperate straits. Are we really going to start talking about reparations when we can't pay our basic bills? And doesn't this incentivize more people from leaving places like California and New York for more friendly climes in terms of fairness and decency? What do you say?
I think that this is nothing more than what you said. It's divisiveness. It's unproductive. What it does, it continues to stoke this racial divide between all Americans. And that's why, I mean, Morgan Freeman once asked about Black History Month, and I think it was Mike Wallace who did it. And artfully and articulately and from the heart, Morgan Freeman said, he didn't want a Black History Month, you know. But at the end or core of that, he said, you shouldn't refer to me as a black man, and I should refer to you as a white man. We're all just men. Here, we're all Americans. We're all New Yorkers. You know, I don't see how this bill is doing anything but doing two things. On the evil side of this, it continues to divide our society. It stokes racial tensions. And on the other matter, this is nothing more than the progressive left trying to dangle more trinkets and carrots and political platitudes to a part of their political base that has been struggling with staying with the Democrats, because over the last 10, 20 years, they've seen no changes under Democrat control of and how their lives are improved. Say what you may want to say. African American unemployment was at an all-time low. Employment was at an all-time high during the Trump administration. You know, Republicans understand, and those people, the people in our communities that want and look forward to their family, their faith, their community, they want to be part of that. They want to be a contributor to that. They're not looking for handouts. Maybe at times, everyone in our lifetime, all of us at one point, maybe need a hand up, maybe need a assistance for a period of time to get on their feet. But we don't want to place people in the caste system where they're stuck in a government-run operation that funds them, feeds them, and basically controls their lives and does not make it any better. This is nothing more than a political act to get political benefit coming into the 2024 elections. And the Democrats don't care. If it stokes divisiveness and it stokes racial tension, they don't care because they feel that they're going to get the benefit of the ballot box.
No, I think that's exactly right, Jesse. I think this is nothing more than a obvious demagogic appeal to identity politics to try to rally the African-American base. They think by promising them free stuff, they'll get the votes. The same way the Biden administration gave away money they were unauthorized to give away under the Constitution of the United States with no lawful authority from Congress to give away forgiveness on student loans. It's a way of buying off support by giving away free stuff to people they identify as likely voters. So I couldn't agree with you more. Now, let me tell you another crazy thing that just happened in the last few days. The New York City Council has passed two laws which, to his credit, Mayor Eric Adams has pledged to veto both of these pieces of local law legislation. And the problem, I will tell you, when you say, well, it's only a local law in New York, the problem is what they're doing will spill over both in its effect and its political appeal to other places. Because I will tell you, having been the general counsel of New York City Council, places like California and New York are often in the lead of legislation, and other people track it. So it becomes an attractive nuisance, I would call it, to other places to follow. So what's the first one? They want to have the police in New York City, every time there's an encounter on the street and they ask a simple question to a person on the streets, they want that reported. They want it reported by race, by age, by physical characteristics. Now, what's that going to do? First of all, it's perfectly constitutional under Terry versus Ohio, a Supreme Court case which says you're allowed to stop, inquire, and frisk, in the pursuance of law enforcement. There's nothing wrong with that. And the only time you have to really make a record is if there's been, in fact, an arrest of the individual. Now they want to do is if they stop me and a police officer asks me the time, or did you see a perpetrator who just did a robbery run down the street, they're going to have to record my name, my address, my racial characteristics, my physical characteristics in this report. What is that going to do, Jesse? Number one, it's going to weigh down the police with more reporting requirements, taking them away from doing the jobs of protecting us and dealing with real crime. And number two, it's going to have a chilling effect for cops doing their job, so-called Ferguson effect, because if they're going to have to do this and they're accused of not doing an accurate report or not reporting everybody they stop, they're going to wind up being in disciplinary proceedings. So what's going to happen? People are going to run away from doing their jobs. They'll just stand idly by and do nothing. That's the Ferguson effect. The second piece of legislation coming out of this brilliant left-wing controlled city council is in the corrections units, whether it's local jails or whether it's in state prisons and, in fact, in federal prisons as well. You're allowed to remove people from the general population and put them, in essence, in an isolation unit, which is carefully monitored about how long it's done and the circumstances of living in. And why do you do that? It's to protect other members of that community, whether they're staff people or other prisoners, from being threatened by people who are dangerous. So isolation of dangerous people has always worked. It protects the corrections officers, whether it's city, state, or federal. It also protects staff. It's another bad piece of legislation by the left-wing city council, and Mayor Adams, again, to his credit, has vowed to veto them. The problem, of course, is you have a supermajority in the city council, mostly controlled by the left wing, and they can overturn his veto by 2/3 vote under the city charter. So what do you think about those two pieces of legislation, Jesse?
It's the New York City Council doing a complete assault upon public safety and the citizenry of New York City. You know, I agree with Mayor Adams on both these issues. I mean, we may have our political differences, but at the very least, this is where I believe him being a sworn officer and a cop is helping the people of New York. You know, I can only imagine. He used a perfect example. What you're doing is stopping policing. You're stopping crimes being investigated or being solved. You're stopping putting cuffs on people who should be arrested and taken off the streets. And a perfect example of that you're endangering the citizenry. Great example he gave. If you're looking for a missing child and a police officer, it asks people in the area about this child, have you seen her, or whatever, everything that they would go through their investigatory handbook and toolbox. Then you got to stop and document that discussion. It's adding bureaucracy that's letting that child be more in danger, or the criminal to seek safety somewhere else, to flee the area, to be able to either get rid of the elements that what he's stolen, or get rid of the weapon and such that you're actually you're helping the criminal complete their crime and to stave off being prosecuted. It's wrong. It's stupid. And I'm glad. And I hope that there are some common sense-minded individuals in the New York State City Council, Democrat supermajority, that will see through this. I mean, you're putting your own citizens at risk here. On the second issue you brought up about solitary, I just don't understand this. It's a continuation of, as I said to you in my response.
Solitary confinement makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I mean, eliminating solitary confinement, you're putting those correction officers in danger from some of these individuals. It's been documented. We know that historically it's occurred. And what about those staff members that are not sworn officers, the staff members that are there and support staff members there, visitors to the jail who wanted to see their loved ones who are in prison? And what about just the prisoners themselves? I mean, we could have situations where we have violence, prisoner on prisoner violence going on inside our jails at a higher rate, because people who should not be in general population are now in general population. And what do? They run scams. They run and become gangs. They enact, they become, these mini little cartels that are basically gangs that exact violence and extort goods and services, and probably sometimes cash. It's just wrongheaded. But then again, I'm not surprised, based on what is represented in the New York City Council, that if you have a choice between protecting criminals and the citizenry, these people, the City Council people, these Democrats, they're going to go with criminals every day of the week.
All right, this is Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. We'll be back in a few moments for continuing our conversations about the important issues of the day.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states, and MLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030.
Are we still on the trail? Is this pack getting heavier? More switchbacks? Why am I doing this?
At REI Co-op, we believe there are places within ourselves.
Just a little further. You got this.
That we find only outside.
Wow. Look at the stars. This is incredible.
We have the gear, inspiration, and advice to help you get there. REI Co-op. Visit rei.com.
My favorite thing about Shipt since I signed up for Target Circle 360? No price markups when I order same-day delivery from tons of local stores. Only a handful of alcohol retailers and items don't count. I won't lie, I've had too much fun being like, markups on groceries? Not in my fridge. Markups on pet food? Not from my DOG. Markups on tools, electronics, home goods, meds? Not in my house. Anyway, it's awesome. Order now at shipt.com/360. Terms apply.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel or that white chocolate mocha. Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
This is Let the Record Show. We're back with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Jesse, I want to switch gears with you because there's been a lot of talk now that there's been a formal inquiry launched by the United States House of Representatives against President Biden and about whether or not he should be tried by the Senate. Because people don't understand, they misuse the term impeachment. Impeachment is merely an accusation. It's voted by the House of Representatives, but then you have to have a two-thirds vote in the United States Senate to remove the individual. And that's the beginning of the process when they voted for formal inquiry. Why do they do a formal inquiry, Jesse? Because that's when they have more power under their subpoena power to go into court to enforce the subpoena or to ask the Justice Department to enforce the subpoena. It independently gives them the right. And there's another way, by the way, which hasn't been used for decades and decades and decades, which is the U.S. House of Representatives can have its sergeant-at-arms arrest somebody who, in fact, has not complied with the subpoena. When a subpoena is issued, whether you like it or not, you have to show up. You want to take the Fifth Amendment? That's fine, but you have no right to say, I'm not going to show up. And that's, by the way, what young Mr. Hunter Biden did, and he's in contempt. It'll be very interesting to see what the Justice Department does on that, or the House of Representatives does on that. So now let's switch to the articles that I want to focus on. Or there's a basis for articles of impeachment against Joe Biden. I submit to you there's very serious charges, and we should look at them very carefully. Number one, I believe that the failure to enforce the immigration law is a violation of the office of the presidency. He's supposed to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and protect and defend this country. He's failed to do this by allowing an open border and not adhering to immigration laws. He has no right to allow people to come into this country, give them, in essence, traffic tickets to come back years later to hearings and let them loose in our country. We don't know who these people are, what threats they are. You have 2 million people just recently added, Jesse, to the terrorist watch list from unlawful immigration. This is serious business. So that's number one. Number two, I alluded to this in the first segment of our show. Biden had absolutely no right to forgive student loans. Constitution says only the Congress can authorize this by legislation in terms of spending bills. He had no right to give away money that way. Third, I believe that he knowingly and unlawfully aided and abetted his son and his brother in their criminal enterprise to influence Peddle. He knew too much along the way. He participated in conversations. He went to lunches and breakfasts and dinners. He went to the Ukraine and got a independent prosecutor fired by waving around the threat that he wasn't going to give them the money, had been voted by the Congress and was previously authorized by the President of the United States. He had no right to do that. He violated the State Department policy. They were as amazed as anybody was about that. And another factor is that people who are close to Obama went to Biden and said to him, you better watch out for what your son is doing, because he's out there doing all kinds of influence peddling all across Europe. And this is very dangerous. He's running terrible risks. So you can't say that Biden did not know about that. So those are three reasons, I think, Jesse, that there may be very good arguments for voting for articles of impeachment out of the House of Representatives. Whether there's a conviction is a different discussion. Whether the House will vote for that, I don't know. But these are far from disingenuous arguments. What say you?
I believe is the Democrats over the last 6 years have weaponized the impeachment process. They brought two baseless counts against Donald Trump for the purposes of political retribution. And then, listen, I'm not a big fan of using impeachment, but in this, until the Democratic Congress was, used it as a routine tool out of its toolbox against Donald Trump. It's unfortunate, but it's been now placed in our normal daily lives. But here in this case, there is real evidence here with President Joe Biden and his connections to his brother and his son on him trying to help them profiteer off of his positions. The House Investigations Committee, Oversight Commissions, we've had whistleblowers come forward. We've analyzed the laptop that's going up. And let's not forget the cover-up that has been ensued first with that first laptop and subsequent matters to that. But the real key here are those whistleblowers and the documents themselves. The House Oversight Committee and those investigating this that led to this impeachment inquiry, they're reviewed and they've collected 40,000 pages of documents, including bank records, text messages, emails that point to a connection. Now, listen, as I said, I think that the impeachment process is being used far too regularly lately in the environment we live in. Even you and I and our good friend Eric Levine have talked about this a couple of times. I'd rather we do it at the ballot box than anything else. But here we have what appears to be real evidence and needs to be examined. And I mean, honestly, and I agree, and Eric Levine and yourself changed my opinion. I thought that Mayorkas was the one that we should have, the Homeland Security should have been the one we subpoenaed, we impeached for his lack of upholding his oath. But really, it's, Attorney General Garland here, who has been the mastermind of the cover-up and the weaponization of the Department of Justice that has protected the Biden family and has been using law enforcement and the judiciary allegedly as a tool against those who don't agree with their beliefs, whether it be parents at school boards being declared terrorists, conservative groups being silenced by big tech, or conservative groups being targeted by the IRS. The idea here is this impeachment inquiry, it says follow the facts. And in this case, the Biden Department of Justice has held up and held back information. Big time mainstream media is already running to defend their favorite candidate here, Joe Biden. But I think in the end, a measured, fair, transparent approach, put it forward before the American people, is what's truly going to decide what happens here. And in his actions and what's been released today, and for me, I depend upon the facts that's been disclosed: bank records, text messages, emails, and of course those whistleblowers.
Yeah, well, Jesse, I agree with you. I'm not for the cavalier use of the impeachment process because it becomes comparable to what the British system is, like a vote of no confidence. But we don't have a parliamentary system. There's no such thing as a vote of no confidence against this president. I mean, they could pass a resolution saying they had no confidence, but it's not the same thing as being able to remove them as you have in a parliamentary system. let me switch gears. We have a couple more minutes in this segment. The Congress has gone away on Christmas vacation, and went away on Christmas vacation early. And they were talking about the border deal, funding Israel, funding the Ukraine. And one of the proposals that were being floated by some of the Republicans, to my amazement and dismay, is about they would cut a deal with the Biden administration. This was based on my readings, that they would agree to no more than 3,000 illegal immigrants coming in every day into the United States. Now, I respectfully submit that's bad public policy. It's illegal, and all they're doing is giving a defense to Biden and the Biden administration for failing to enforce our laws, which, again, is a violation of their constitutional obligations to enforce the laws and protect and defend this country. As you and I have agreed over the years, if you don't have a border policy where you protect the sovereignty of the border, you do not have a country. We're being overrun by the millions of people who should not be here. They only have a right to come here under the law if they're in threat of their physical safety, which is probably about no more than 5% of the number, and that's probably a high-end number. People being let in because it's an economic drive. They want a better life. I get it, but then they should wait online, Jesse, like everybody else waits online, like your family waited online, my family's waited online. They should wait online, go through the process. They have no right to come into this country. They have no right to be discharged into the United States. We don't know who they are, what they're about, and they're setting the facts on the ground that you can have illegal immigrants legally converted to citizens because of the politics of the Democrats. I'll give you the final word in this segment, and then we have to take a break.
Final word is you cannot codify or make legal illegal activity. You cannot say that 3,000 or any number of illegal immigrants are allowed to come over across the border. This is what leads to our problems. What we need is stronger border security. We need the funding to be there. We need the enforcement of our laws. We need to go back to the Trump era border and immigration policies that defended our country. Like it or not, that's what defended this country, closed that border, and actually stopped cartels from bringing fentanyl and their drugs into our communities and killing our kids. It stopped human trafficking. It stopped the possibility of terrorists coming here to do harm to us when we're at war. That is a problem. This is not a good deal. You cannot allow illegal activity and then make it lawful.
Absolutely agree. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We'll be taking a short break, and we'll be back in just a few moments. Stay with us for more interesting conversation.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Clorox Scentiva smells like grapefruit. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
Okay, we could be here all day. Try Clorox Scentiva for a trusted clean with long-lasting freshness. Also available in lavender and coconut. Use as directed.
This episode is brought to you by Principles. Ray Dalio, legendary investor and New York Times best-selling author, wants to pass along his understanding of how countries go broke, because he believes the U.S. budget and debt situation needs to be addressed. To give you that knowledge, he has put the draft of his book, How Countries Go Broke, The Big Cycle, online for free. It's available now at economicprinciples.org.
Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man. id Software presents Doom, The Dark Ages. Available now on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC.
Rated M for mature.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So, Jesse, I'm very concerned about what's going on in the world. You and I have talked about the axis of evil, which is China and Russia and Iran and Venezuela and North Korea. And we're in very dire straits. And this is a world war that's already started, Jesse. It's a world war that the Biden administration doesn't seem to understand is going on. Better minds than mine have said it's going on. People like Gordon Chang, who understands how it all intersects. There are no coincidences in this life, Jesse. The Chinese are very carefully looking at Taiwan. They've just sent out a signal to Biden. They'll make any move they want against Taiwan anytime they want to and use any means necessary. They've already said that to Biden. So they're watching what's going on in the world. Hamas is merely an agent of Iran, as is Hezbollah, as are the Houthis. These are very dangerous people that want to have Iranian control, hegemony over the Middle East. They're showing that they respect no international law. The Red Sea merchant fleets are under attack. We're shooting down drones that are attacking both commercial ships and are launched against our military resources as well as our ships in the Red Sea. I'm absolutely shocked that people are not waking up to this danger. And Ukraine is another example, Jesse. You have an invasion, an aggressive aggression by Putin. What was he trying to do? He's trying to take over all of the Ukraine. It's a breadbasket for the world, has enormous natural resources. He wants to reestablish the Russian Empire. These are dangerous times. And unfortunately, the politics are being played all around Washington, whether in Congress or whether by the President of the United States, is very disheartening. Because if we don't fight back and give Israel, which is fighting, because Israel is the first line of defense against an overrunning of the Middle East and all its oil resources and the international trade through the Red Sea. If that's taken over, all the other countries around them will be intimidated, fall down like dominoes, and America will be excluded from that. If the Ukraine falls, that only encourages Putin to go after other Baltic states as well as Poland itself, and will engage in NATO and a NATO problem. And, of course, the Chinese are just waiting to see how it all plays out so they can gobble up Taiwan, which, of course, Taiwan being, from our concerns, a source of natural resources as well as production of batteries. So we're really under attack, and the Democrats and Republicans, both in the House and the Senate and the White House, they can't get their act together. We have to fund these people, and we have to do it now. What say you, Jesse?
I agree with you. I think that this is a culmination, or as a result, of the failed foreign policy of the Biden administration. They have removed America from the global stage as an American leader, as a global leader on the international stage. They've done this in Europe. They've done this in the Middle East. They have allowed countries like Iran to crawl back into these issues in the Middle East and lead those matters. They have allowed China to advance in different areas throughout the region, whether it be the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Cuba, and of course with Russia's alliance and such, and as a threat to Taiwan. This is a complete failure of this. They are helping and funding the Ukrainian war machine on the Russian side. That's what they're doing, Iran and China. So this is a direct result of these failed policies. That vacuum that Biden has created by removing America as a leader has been filled by this axis of evil we've been speaking about. And all it's going to take is a resurrection of a strong America policy, an America First policy, or as we used to say with Teddy Roosevelt, with Ronald Reagan, peace through strength. This did not happen during the Trump administration because they knew that the administration under Donald Trump meant business. If you attacked one of our allies, you attacked all of us. And that's what we went forward with. Here, we have to take a strong stance. Do I believe that funding for Israel should go forward? Yes, I do. Do I believe that we need to fund Ukraine? I do, but there needs to be caveats and connections here. There's too much corruption in Ukraine. It's been documented over certain years. Even individuals like Biden has indicated there's corruption when he went and held up billions of dollars of U.S. funding on the record if they did not remove a certain a governmental official. I believe he was a prosecutor or whatnot, and there's a case at the moment. But the problem is here, let's let these bills go forward. Let them go on separately. We understand what needs to be there. And let's not forget the Ukrainian-Russian war. Who was slow at the start of this to get involved and to provide military aid? It was the Biden administration. Who was Biden now tells Israel how they should fight a war to protect their citizens. No one dared and should have ever told the United States on how to defend herself, in the wake of 9/11, when the attacks came upon our shores. We should be a strong, full-throated ally of Israel, not one that's trying to, basically, tip their hands to the enemy and also tip a hand to the political left of Joe Biden's party. And let's not forget that infamous quote, small incursion's okay, when Biden was talking about Russia first moving forward into Ukraine before the full-out invasion.
Well, this is the problem with Israel. The problem with Israel is you can't tell people how to fight a war when they're threatened with an existential threat about their existence. From the river to the sea is nothing more but the extermination of the Jewish people in Israel, as well as the abolition of the state of Israel, a country that's a legitimate country in the world, recognized in 1948 by the United Nations. So let's be clear. It's not an illegitimate country. It's a legitimate country. It has a right to defend itself. No one has a right to tell them how to defend themselves. And when these people say from the river to the sea, and they tell you that this is just the first attempt, they'll keep coming back and back and back. As long as their existence, as Hamas is in existence, they will keep coming back. And so if we had a permanent ceasefire, it would be permanent up until the time Hamas decided with Iran, that they're going to do what they have to do to abolish Israel and destroy the Jewish people there. It's as simple as that. So all due respect to Biden and to Blinken and all the other clowns who say fight with both hands tied behind your back, worry about the civilians, don't worry about your own soldiers. Well, in war, there's collateral damage. When we bombed Dresden, there's collateral damage against Germans, innocent civilians. When we went and hit Hiroshima and Nagasaki, same thing. And when we went in previously in the wars in the Middle East, same thing. The United States was not nearly as careful as the Israelis are by giving people advance warnings of these attacks and trying to limit collateral damage to the civilian population. So much for that hypocrisy. One more point I want to make, and this comes from an article that our mutual friend Eric Levine just wrote. He's saying, stop talking about what happens the day after the war, about who's going to be running Gaza. And they're talking, and this is Biden's idiocy and Blinken's. They want to bring back the PLO. The PLO, the Arafat PLO, now run by Abbas. First of all, they're hated. If there's an election in the West Bank, they'd be voted down by the Hamas people. They're as dedicated to the destruction of the state of Israel and to the Jewish people as is Hamas. If there was an alliance, a strategic alliance, to take over the management of Gaza by the Abbas people and Hamas, ultimately Hamas would win. They're smarter, they're tougher, they're better armed, and they're more popular with the Palestinian people. So that's a joke. It's absolutely ridiculous to even think about that while they're fighting this fight. If you're going to have government of Gaza after this war, it has to be one that's not dedicated to the destruction of the state of Israel and the extermination of the Jewish people. Otherwise, you're just going to have continual warfare. So that means Hamas cannot be a player and Abbas cannot be a player. And let's get really clear at this. None of this would be happening unless it was encouraged and supported both economically and militarily and technologically by Iran and their revolutionary guard. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We're taking a break. We'll be back in a few moments for the final segment of this week's Let the Record Show. Please stay tuned.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are dietitian-approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences, like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code listen50 for 50% off, plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50. Code listen50. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey besties, listen up. I have a secret to tell you. LinkedIn now has improved the job search experience for nurses. Search by your specialty, the shifts you want to work, and the salary that you want to make. With so many employers hiring on LinkedIn, finding the perfect job is even more simplified. So don't spend months searching. Go to linkedin.com/nurses and find out why in the past year, more than 1.5 million nurses have used LinkedIn to search for their next role. That's linkedin.com/nurses.
This episode is brought to you by Hulu, presenting Paradise. Paradise is Hulu's critically acclaimed addictive drama series, starring Sterling K. Brown, Julianne Nicholson, and James Marsden. The Daily Beast calls Paradise your next TV obsession, and the New York Times says it's exhilarating in all the right ways. Paradise is for your Emmy consideration in all categories, including Outstanding Drama Series. For more information, visit fyc.hulu.com.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
We're back for the final segment of this week's Let the Record Show. So, switching gears, Jesse, you have this absolutely awful resurgence of anti-Semitism in the United States of America, a place where the Jewish community makes great contributions, whether in medicine, in law, in science, in industry, in media, in culture. A place that Jews thought they were safe, just very much like the German Jews thought in the 1930s that they were Germans first and Jews second. There's an attack of anti-Semitism. It's coming from the left. It's coming. There's always been right-wing anti-Semitism, but this attack against Jews is coming from the left. You know, people used to say, well, if you're anti-Zionist, doesn't mean you're anti-Jewish, you're anti-Semitic. That's not true, Jesse. They're going after the Jewish people who even were pro-peace, wanted to have reconciliation with the Palestinian people and the Arab community. The Jewish people of Israel have shown time after time after time they're willing to cut a deal for a two-state solution. It's constantly been rejected at least 5 or 6 times, twice during the British Mandate, and then at least 3 or 4 times since Israel was a separate country. So the anti-Semitism is rampant. The kids on college campuses have been indoctrinated by diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is racist, anti-Semitic, and a left-wing propaganda machine. These universities have great endowments. You look at Harvard, you look at Yale, you look at Stanford. They have enormous, Columbia, great endowments. Now, let me tell you about endowments, Jesse. They're tax-free. That money is tax-free. It's not taxed when the contribution is made. It's not taxed when it's accumulated. It's not taxed on the income. So if they want to be hotbeds of anti-Semitism, which violates, by the way, the United States Civil Rights Law, Section 6 of the Civil Rights Act, by discriminating against Jewish students and creating a hostile environment for them and not protecting them, the first thing Congress should do is pass a law making it very, very clear that they're not entitled to tax exemptions. Take it away. They should not be funded by the United States in any way, directly or indirectly. They should not get tax exemptions. What say you?
I completely agree. Their tax exemptions should go. Their tax exemptions on their properties, their tax exemptions on their endowments. And you know what we can see here is that the actual donors, the people who are part of the alumni, they are speaking with their pocketbooks. They're now no longer funding these institutions because the hierarchy is not taking into any consequence anti-Semitism and the continuation of an assault on the Jewish people on these campuses. It is wrong. These are multi-million, almost billion-dollar endowments. Number one, they don't need it.
Oh, it's in the billions. In a place like Harvard, it's in the billions. I mean, in the tens of billions.
They don't need American Institute taxpayer monies to fund their programs. They have this endowment from their alumni and however they raise their dollars. That's, first of all, they shouldn't have them anyway. But now the fact that they're using tax dollars and these tax breaks, because that is they're cutting away tax dollars into the Treasury by getting these exemptions. Those exemptions should be removed.
I know. And by the way, let me talk to you about another issue that's related to this. A large number of these universities who are indoctrinating our kids, and these kids are ignorant, they're just being indoctrinated by the crazy left. Large number of these programs, the money is coming from China and from other countries in the Middle East that are hostile to the United States and to us continuing as a tolerant society. What say you about that?
It's unbelievable. We're allowing, but this is the way academia is. Academia has been changing at the higher education level and now in our high schools and our local schools for the longest time. They've been indoctrinating our students. What's happened here is this conflict in the Gaza and the attack on Israel has pulled back the curtain on the hypocrisy of academia and the support of academia for anti-Semitic behaviors as we've gone forward here. Unbelievable that the board of directors for Harvard has said that the president can sit there. And then we find out after allowing and condoning anti-Semitic actions against her students. And then we double down. We're still trying to figure out and get them to admit whether she actually plagiarized anything in her writings, as part of this. But the other part is we pulled back the curtain on hypocrisy in our local schools during COVID. Parents finally got to see what their kids were being taught, and they weren't happy. They were being taught anti-American, anti-patriotism. They were being taught lessons that are anti-society and this left progressive agenda, and they're doing it in our schools, and it's got to end.
Well, I'll tell you, Jesse, it's very, very troubling because the Jewish community has always been subject to anti-Semitism for thousands of years. But as you correctly use the term of art, the curtain's been pulled back. The difference on the anti-Semitism in the United States, for example, is it was kind of like a polite anti-Semitism. You couldn't join our country clubs or our private clubs in the city. You couldn't live in certain neighborhoods with restricted covenants, and then that was abolished by the Supreme Court of the United States in a case called Shelley versus Kramer in the 1940s, I think 1948. They abolished restrictive covenants, but there's still an undercurrent of that. Certain businesses wouldn't give you an opportunity. Certain schools had quotas, Jewish quotas. But now the pure Jewish hatred, the pure viciousness is stark. It's absolutely stark. It's not a polite anti-Semitism of the country club, of the private clubs, or of the universities saying, well, there's a Jewish quota. Now they're in the streets blocking our bridges, our tunnels, the Port Authority, Grand Central Station, Penn Station, the streets. They're going to the streets saying, across the river, from the river to the sea, all across New York City, all across the country, indeed all across the world. You have rabid anti-Semitism saying, abolish Israel, gas the Jews. Can you imagine gas the Jews in a civilized place like Australia, in Sydney, Australia? That was the signage that they used in front of the Sydney Opera House, one of the great cultural centers of the world. How awful is that as we end this calendar year, 2023, and you have this primitive hatred where they're calling for the extermination of people just because they're different. Jesse, I think we're going to have to sign off now. But yes. We're on the eve of Christmas, and I will tell you, I love the Christmas holidays. I absolutely adore it. I always look forward to it. I think we've had a very good year together. It's been an absolute delight. I want to say, as we go to Christmas before our last show next week, a very Merry Christmas, a wonderful time to spend with your family and your friends, a wonderful time to talk about the real meaning of life and brotherhood of man. What do you say, Jesse?
I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, a blessed time. Hug your family, stay with your families, because that's what this is about. You know, Christ was born for us to be in the light, and I want to have everyone blessed this Christmas season. And it's going to be special for us because my freshman college student is home from college for his first time, so it's going to be good to spend some time with him.
That's wonderful. And by the way, I just want to make one more point that people should remember in this rapid anti-Semitism. If Christ were alive today, he lived and died as a Jew. He was a practicing Jew, and he lived and died as a Jew. So all this rampant anti-Jewish hatred, just remember that the Savior of the Christian people was, in fact, through his entire course of his life, an adherent of Judaism. So let the record show on that important point as well. God bless this country. Jesse, God bless you and your family. Have a wonderful Christmas, and I look forward to talking with you next week. Thank you for listening to our wonderful audience.